All right, I'm Kim White, and I'm the founder of Road to a Better Life, which is based in Thailand primarily, and we do service work with the idea of extending that into other countries possibly. I came back in March, a year ago, March, so I've been back in the States for a year and 4 months. Initially, I came back to just see family for a couple of months, and say 3 months, and then I'd head back to Thailand. But as soon as I got here with COVID, things locked down and Thailand completely shut. In 4 months, I've been living in a camper. I bought a truck camper I got in 2012. I have a little land up in Wisconsin where I keep it when I'm back in Thailand for most of the year. And the camper is, if you want dimensions, it's 17 feet long by 8 feet wide, and it has absolutely everything I could possibly want within reaching distance. So I can, like I've told other people, I can sit on the toilet and stir the soup and brush my teeth, open the front door, read a book, go to bed with barely moving 2 feet. So it's a nice setup and everything. Being in this camper, for a while I was staying on a lot adjacent to my son's place in Florida, and I could be there with a couple of days without seeing anyone, but I couldn't really go anywhere, like, of course, a lot of people. So I'd order food and it would come in, and that took care of the food situation for a while. But then when things began to open up, I was more mobile, and I could go to other areas of Florida, which I did, to get out in nature and photograph birds. Something else I really got into when I was isolated. I had a kayak, and several times a week, it almost became every day, I would take off very early and get out on the lake, and before sunrise and when the light was great, and I'd photograph the birds through the course of the year. Then I think it was last summer when things began to heat up temperature-wise in Florida. I took off for Wisconsin in the camper, and I camped on a friend's farm for a couple of months, and I did the same thing when I was up there. I would hit lakes and take off with my kayak and primarily film eagles. And this was a welcome reprieve from what everyone else was experiencing. And I love nature, and I love wild things, and I felt like I was home when I got out on the lake and was able to film the birds. And when I get out in nature, for some reason I feel less alone, and I feel a part of something that's one heck of a lot bigger than my little life. And by photographing the birds, I have some very fond memories of this year. So I know that some people, you know, they've got it really, really bad. Like in Thailand, there we provide Road to a Better Life provided food for lunches for a hill tribe group up in the hills, Lisu Hill Tribe, for a year, and they didn't have enough money for food, and that's the way it was all over Thailand, especially in the hill tribe areas. So I feel like I had it pretty easy. The only thing was the isolation that I think might be upsetting to some people, but it wasn't that much to me at all. I had my books, I had my camera, I had, who else? Oh, Bonnie. I had Bonnie. We would do, every Sunday we would do one of these. We would have our coffee chats, and that's sort of what's happening now, except it's not Sunday. And it was great. You know, actually that was something else. I've got to say that the books, the camera, the kayak, the birds, nature, and Bonnie help get me through.
There.
Help me. I'm sorry. I've got to say that Bonnie, my books, camera, kayak, birds helped me get through the year, and I thought that I could take some of what I learned this past year, use that in Thailand. Maybe there's some way of incorporating what I learned back here during the pandemic to teach English, environmental conservation, and the need to preserve the natural environment. That to help the kids in these hill tribe villages. I don't know why I'm feeling like this is a bomb.
It got really good when you started talking about the birds, because that's what you care about.
Yeah.
Everything else was a lead up to that.
Yeah.
You dip down to talk about what you care about.
Yeah.
I can feel it. Like you just.
Yeah.
The uniqueness is not being in the camper.
No.
The uniqueness of your isolation is finding that.
Is being out of it.
It's finding your connection to humanity through your love of birds.
Well, it's more than the love of birds. It's nature.
Nature, okay.
Basically. Because I can, there are times when I've gone out on the lake, when the sun's coming up in the morning, and I, before sunrise, I'm out on the lake, and there's not a soul around, and all I hear the water lapping on the kayak, and I see the light coming up of the sunrise, and it's like it's too early to take any pictures because it's not light enough. It doesn't matter because I'm out there and all I'm doing is looking at the beautiful light, the sunrise slowly coming up and the sort of the beams of light coming up over the horizon. And then I hear the birds calling and I see them flying back and forth and following each other or chasing each other, and they're going off to work in the morning. And not a soul around. Just myself and the birds. And I don't know, I've always loved that. And I don't even have to be taking pictures just to be in that environment, to see that kind of light and to be close to these other living things that are going about their business. That is so powerful to me. And that's what I love. I mean, that's why, you know, for years I talked about going into Canada and canoeing and so on. I would come back from teaching and then go into the Quetico in Canada, and most often it was just solo stuff. And it was to, again, be close to nature and to get answers about what life is all about when you're out in the wilderness by yourself. And every time I've done that, I've felt more whole, and I get some answers, and it helps put things in perspective and helps me, I think, to understand what's really important in this life. And it's not the pursuit of money or power or anything like that. It's realizing that you're just a tiny part of something that's much bigger. And when I remember this one time being out on a lake in the Quetico, one of the favorite places I've gone for every summer for 25 years. I was leaving to go back. This was after like 10 days or so. To go back, it's a couple of days paddle to get out. And the sun was coming up. The sun was rising. And there was a thick fog over this lake. And you could see above the fog, and you could see the pine trees above the fog, but you couldn't see the lake. And I put the canoe in, and the sunrise made the fog pink. So there's just this sea of pink. It looked like a reddish pink clouds. And I loaded the canoe, and I started paddling, and then I heard these wolves howling in the distance. So here I was, alone, which I chose to do, paddling, canoeing through clouds. There was no water there. I was just on these pink clouds, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I found that, you know, like this, during the pandemic, I had experiences like that when I was out on the lakes, again, super early, without people around, just nature and my kayak and me. Well, yeah, my good Pakistani friend who was in Karachi when we were there, he told me about this one area where there were eagles on the Olympic Peninsula. And I felt I just had to go out there and see if I could find them. So last month in May, I drove out there, didn't see anything. It just got more and more beautiful, though, with the forests and so on out west. It's absolutely spectacular. Then I found this little fishing village, and I met my friend there for a day, and sure enough, the eagles came in, and then he left after that, and I ended up staying there for a week or 10 days, and it was spectacular too. In that case, I just felt like it was the eagles were my buddies, and in fact, I recognized some of the eagles by missing feathers, and I got some fairly decent shots of them. But I learned a lot about eagles, and that was another beautiful experience. But there's still a lot of gorgeous places in this country and on the planet. we just need to take care of them, and and quit thinking that we're above everything else. And hopefully that day will come.